everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel and tap the notification bell. I'd appreciate it majorly. So, I saw the story this morning about Dr. Michael Bowden basically is saying that, the results of Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy much more resemble a homicide than a suicide. And he went over a variety of things. Before we get started, I do find extremely suspicious that this is being presented today, okay? And there's no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. The day after, Vindman, testified yesterday and said a few things, I don't want to cover that story in this story, but that's what this is about. That's what this is about, totally. And, Dr. Michael Bowden is a Fox News contributor. He has been, I guess he's been on contract every year, at least in some minimal amount, on standby since 2003, which leads me to believe that's like a big reason why he was selected by Jeffrey Epstein's brother to do this, to basically sit in on the autopsy and observe, and I guess serve in some respect as a spokesperson for Jeffrey Epstein's brother, the Epstein family. But nevertheless, I can see over at the Daily Mail, this has taken over, this has become the top story. It's been shared so far 290,000 times, which leads me to believe, I know like sort of Russian troll farms totally push whatever story that Trump wants them to push. And that's just, that just is, okay? But anyways, so he's basically, but I know a fair amount about this because I followed the story quite a bit, and he's saying that, like I said, the overarching theme or point he was making is that this much more resembles a homicide than a suicide, and he basically said that in all his, I guess, was it 50 years as a forensic pathologist, and he was a former medical examiner for the city of New York. He's never seen a suicide that resulted in the bones being broken the way they were with Jeffrey Epstein in his thyroid area. I forget the exact name of the bones, and I think there was 2 or 3 that were broken. So what he was asking for, why of all days was today the day that this came forward? It's because of the impeachment inquiry, and it's because of Vindman's testimony yesterday, which, like I said in the beginning. But He's basically calling for, the FBI, who's conducting this investigation, because it's a federal prison, to release 2 things. The DNA results that were, because samples or clippings from his fingernails, Epstein's fingernails were taken upon his death to see if he fought back. And also, the device he used to hang himself, I forget what he called that. Doesn't matter. They swabbed that for DNA because whoever made that, whether it was Jeffrey Epstein or somebody else, if it's Epstein, it would be his own DNA. There'd be DNA all over the sheets that were twisted up and made into, some kind of a noose to hang him, or at least make it look like he hung himself. But if it was somebody else, that their DNA would be all over that if they didn't have gloves on. So, he brought up, he said he appeared on Fox and Friends. For like 3 or so minutes, he brought up the fact that the 2 security guards at the MCC, at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, fell asleep, both at the same time. The camera didn't work. The camera that covers the hallway or in the view entering, where you could see somebody entering and leaving Jeffrey Epstein's cell wasn't working. So we don't know if somehow somebody got into that cell. Obviously his roommate that had been in there had been let out on bail the night prior. And Nicholas Tartaglia, who he had roomed with, there was a fair amount of story there as well, which I don't want to go too much into it, but I watched some of the developing stories. He wrote, post Jeffrey Epstein's death that, he wrote a letter to the New York Daily News. He penned a letter, and they had a screenshot of at least a portion of it, basically saying he never touched Jeffrey Epstein. And he said that Epstein told him, this is Nicholas Tartaglia, that Epstein told him that the jail put him, Epstein, with Nicholas Tartaglia because the jail basically trusted that he wouldn't be touched or extorted by Nicholas Tartaglia. Which kind of contradicts his own, some of the other things he said, because through his attorneys, he's requested a transfer. And he's basically said that, he's being threatened by guards after Jeffrey Epstein's death because he knows too much about his suicide or whatever. And that seems to kind of contradict the same things that he says, that the jail trusted him. I've made points about the fact that the Justice Department under William Barr, Trump's Attorney General, has changed their long-standing policy, I think standing for 16 years, and will begin again federal executions, I believe in November. So basically in a month. He hasn't even gone on trial, but I was making the case that seemed like a pretty big coincidence that policy got changed right around this time, that Epstein was detained and put in the federal prison there in New York City, and he's going to be facing trial, and he will be facing the death penalty. William Barr's actually announced that in a previous press release. So, I was making the case that, if Nicholas Tartaglia cooperated in some way, that maybe the death penalty would be taken off the table, And that's the suggestion I was making. So that's the story there, man. That is the story there. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.